So when you work with franchisees, right? First of all, our philosophy has always been stay small to grow large. It's something that's a lot different than other franchise companies. We've sold over 800 franchises, and we only have about 65 ownership groups. So we started with that philosophy because we wanted less people to own more units, so we could balance the culture of the business better. So if you're a franchise owner, I can know you, I can know your kids, you can know me. We get to know each other much better. Therefore, we end up over time being able to work through any challenges that we might have a little more effectively. When you're trying to manage to 400 franchisees that own 800 clubs, then you can't get to know everybody. You just can't. So we spent extra time, painstaking time, trying to develop the culture in the business. And sometimes it cuts both ways, because sometimes people can say, hey, we know each other. How could you push me too hard on that? And the other side is, if there is something that you're at odds with each other on, you work through it. So certain examples would be, like, for franchisees, they're required to stay on a schedule. So if you come in and you buy 20 clubs, right, that's the territory and the rights to buy 20 clubs. So I'm building up to a specific instant. And you're required to build 2 clubs a year or sign 2 leases, right? The investment for each of these clubs is $1.5 million to $2 million. So this is fairly significant commitment if you're going to do 20 of these, right? You're going to have to invest one way or another, $40 million over the course of the next 10 years. So you get out and you open the club, and usually the clubs take off as well as they should, right? They trend perfectly, they cash flow, which is great. In our industry, though, you end up with a portfolio, generally a couple of clubs that don't perform anywhere near you thought they should. Some that are incredible.
Our industry too, in real estate, same thing.
And then you got the middle ones that pretty much do what they want, right? But let's say your first one, for whatever reason, whether it's operator deficiency or wrong location or what have you, doesn't take off. All right. And maybe it's trending in the wrong direction. And this isn't a normal case, but it can happen in any franchise company. Then that creates a lot of stress with the owner, right? But the owner is required to stay on schedule. They have to stay on schedule. So they've got to reach in there and invest another couple of $1 million to open another studio or health club to offset any potential challenges they're having in that one. So that's a real challenging thing to get someone through. Well, I just invested this. How do you expect me to invest something more if this isn't trending right? Well, you have to. And here's how we're going to work through it. And that can become a very contentious scenario, right? So you've got to make sure you throw as much support as you can behind the operator to make sure if there's something you're not providing them as a franchisor, that you engage in that and you make sure they get that. You have to look for more creative ways to drive more revenue into their system. Maybe you have to dive in their P&Ls. They're providing, they're spending too much overhead, and that's the cause of that. But you've got to get behind them 110%, get them through that. So the first then level becomes get them to break even, so everything's comfortable, there's less stress. And then you've got to also apply the pressure on the other side to remind them of their obligations to continue. And if they decide not to, well, then you're at an impasse. If you're not going to develop, then we have to default the relationship, resell it to somebody else, and then you've got that person sitting there. Right? That's a specific situation that any franchisor can work through, and how, I guess, skillfully and appropriately and respecting the relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee, you work through that. Ideally, you come out with the best outcome, where the franchisee's satisfied, understanding, feels supported, and moves on to the next club.